All right, so basically, just to cover the fact that we had a massive lack of ideas about today's theme, Adam picked a wide range of topics that we're gonna simply discuss and react to today, of what we are expecting for this year, and things which gonna happen or may happen.
So I've been explaining it for a while. So what's your take on it? I'm looking at your face here, and it's looking interesting.
I'm
So
thinking. No, I'm thinking of a few things. First of all, you have a baseball card. It's physical. It's in your hand. It's signed by the player and everything. I don't know anything about baseball, but as an object of value, I know it has value. Fair enough. I have it. It's on my desk. It's in a display. I have it for 17 generation, whatever. If I have something like this in Final Fantasy 14, in 10 years, service goes down, finished. I spend money on a collector item which gonna disappear. Ugh, I don't see the point. Except not video games, but we hear a lot of meta, these days. Like Ready Player One again, but because of the COVID and everything, companies want to make a meta space for their employees so that you can connect and have your uh, digital space. And so if you want to have your avatar NFTs, and so you can have it cross game and have it, like in every game and every meta space and everything. Okay, so you have your identity and no one can steal it. In a way, yes, I can understand. Otherwise, see it as a way for rich people to get richer, collection. I see it as a way for Square Enix to make even more money because it's gonna sell. If they say, "Hey, here's a mug plushie, digital," there's only 1,000 of them. It's gonna be gone tomorrow morning. They're gonna be scalpers. It's gonna have a field day on it. Uh, it's, sorry, I'm not a revolutionist, no, revolutionary or something anything like this, but it's really a rich people game, isn't it? That's I don't.
I mean, it's like any collector's item, and I mean, even a baseball card, you know, they can burn, they can fall apart, they can deteriorate. However, aren't French people revolutionary? But they can be destroyed
Yeah.
too. And I think a baseball card is a pretty good example because now like some baseball cards will have certificates that of authenticity because
Hmm.
maybe before those things aren't easy to fake, but now I have a scanner. If I have a scanner with a good printer and good card stock, I can effectively recreate a baseball card, assuming it's not holographic or something. And
Wait.
it might be, to your average person, it might be really hard to tell a real baseball card
Okay.
from a fake one.
F- Fair enough for a baseball card, but think a bit bigger. Think a painting. Art. Statue, sculpture, painting. Collector. Collectors are collecting. Okay, for small stuff like stamps, maybe you could scan it and make fakes. But the fakes already exist. Huh? We agree on
Fakes
it.
exist to the Mona
So
Lisa. I mean,
and that's why you have a certificate to prove that this one is a real one, and you have experts, trained on identifying that this one is um the real one. I'm sure you could have the same in a digital world. A guy examining a code behind the object to say, yes, there's a little Square Enix stamp in there saying that, yes, that's the original stuff. Again, I prefer, I'm old fashioned, sorry. I prefer to, I know that if I have a physical thing and I take care of it, and of course, if there's no flood or fire in my house or anything, but that's maybe, if I'm not lucky. But for your collector item in Final Fantasy 14, you're definitely gonna lose it in 10 or 20 years or whenever the server goes down, because they will go down because games are not eternal. That is just wasted money.
But you still have the
too.
certificate. And
But
remember, it's not the item that has value, it's the certificate that has value.
I have a certificate of something which does not exist anymore.
Yeah, which makes it more
So
valuable. That's the logic behind this. You know, the point is the certificate is the value, not the item
yeah,
itself. And I think that's where a lot of people get confused is thinking the item itself is basically worthless. You know, and I think that's kind of the idea. Is it's basically it's bragging rights. It's entirely bragging rights.
the item itself does not exist. It's digital. That's the point.
Right. So as Korean
So
says, the it always exists on the blockchain, which doesn't shut down when the company shuts down. So the yeah, so you might not have access to that character. Uh, so the character doesn't exist, or maybe they exist as code, but you can't access them because there's no game for the character to be in. But that's not the point. The point is that you have this NFT, you have this code or whatever, you have the certificate saying that you have the value of the item. So yeah, that's kind of thing. And I mean, even was it the Mona Lisa? There was I'm trying to look up the guy's name, but it was it Yves Chaudron. I don't know, but there was a guy, and what he did is he uh either he stole the Mona Lisa or he got somebody else. I think he got somebody else to steal the Mona Lisa, and he was a master forger, so he made forgeries of the Mona Lisa, and then he went around talking to different people, telling them like, "Oh, I have the Mona Lisa. Do you want to buy it?" And so he kept selling people his forgeries. But the thing is after a while they can't tell which one. They couldn't tell which one was the original one and which one was his forgery because he was really good at it. So the only thing that distinguishes the real Mona Lisa from a fake one is somebody coming along and saying this one's official. To your
I
average person walking
think
around the Louvre, they can't
well,
tell.
I don't want to be definitive on this, but I'm pretty sure there's scientific methods, like taking a sample of the pigment of the painting, you know,
Yeah,
taking analyze it and match it to the period and everything to confirm which one is like they just go to the lab and do some science experiment and say no, this one's a real one. They could do that. It's expensive, of course, but if it's worth it.
but Da Vinci's own
Final question.
students made copies of the
Yeah,
Mona Lisa. So there are
exactly.
some from that
So,
era.
so I'm saying Korean's question. Final question for you two. What do you think would happen to Final Fantasy community if Square Enix just forced NFT on them? 20% player loss? No. I mean,
Yeah.
if they just go to the what's called a Moogle station where they
Mog
sell their
Station.
stuff, Mog station, if they just say you can buy this mug mount and there's only 1,000 of them and we make it official, tomorrow it's sold. Huh? People are gonna jump on it, mate.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, and I'm seeing, I'm thinking that when you own a sculpture, it's more like a long game. You collect it for all of your lifetime, and maybe you sell it at the end of your life or something like this. You keep it for 50 years. For this mug mount, you have it for 2 months and say go back to the market and sell it, and it's gonna be sold 10 times just to make money out of it. Or I'm just seeing it. NFTs are a much faster period, not really to collect the object itself, but to make money out of it. Because as you said, it doesn't exist. So it's really
Yeah.
just to make money.
I think at Square Enix, the best example would probably be housing, just because there is limited housing. There's only so many houses per server, and it's huge for people trying to get housing. And I think this was one of the problems: is people used to be able to trade housing or buy multiple houses, and some people were buying multiple houses, and the housing market was just going straight up, and new players weren't able to buy it. And I think if we saw it NFTs, it would just be exactly that. It would be the exact same thing that we saw earlier. So I don't think they'd lose too much player base. I did hear that he wasn't talking about Final Fantasy specifically. He was talking about maybe making new games with NFTs, probably mobile games with NFTs. So I don't think it would be added to Final Fantasy 14 or future Final Fantasy games. But the other argument that I've heard is that for NFTs, they're entirely unnecessary because from what I've heard, they're saying, okay, so if the idea is to create a limited supply of something, or even if you want to know who officially has one or who officially does not have one, it's just a matter of like they have. Okay, so for instance, if I buy something on MogStation, there's a record that says I own it, right? Because obviously I can access it on
Mhm.
my account. So why do we need a blockchain? There's the idea of a blockchain, I guess, is that it lasts in perpetuity. So even if they do shut down the servers, there's still something out there that I can still verify this. But from a gaming perspective, from what I've heard, blockchains, because they are blockchains, then basically it's similar to cryptocurrency where people are farming it basically and creating all this stuff over and over and over again. And I think part of the reason that gamers, from what I've seen, people arguing against it, one of the biggest arguments is encouraging these sort of things is just going to make getting a graphics card that much harder in the future. And so because of that, then people are saying, yeah, just there's better ways to do it that's more energy efficient and doesn't put a strain on the graphics card economy. Why are you basically NFTs are just you're creating a problem that doesn't exist and you're just making something harder. That something that you can already do, you're making it more difficult. So I think that's the argument usually against it. But again, I think it's a matter of perspective. For most people out there, yeah, it's worthless. It's nothing. Who cares if I have a something saying that this is officially my JPEG? I can everyone else can still download it, but mine's official. It's basically just bragging rights. So there's a market for it, but I think most of your population is not going to care too much. So
On the just thinking that we know because we make videos and we were talking about it just before. We know that when we make videos, sometimes you go to DeviantArt to find the picture which goes well with your videos, but these pictures most of the times have rights, owner rights on it, and you can't just take it and put it on your videos like this, or at least you have to ask the guy who made it. Isn't that a sort of NFT that they already have copyrights on it? They're
no,
already
because there's no
official
blockchain.
their
That's the
items.
only difference.
That, yeah, no, I feel old like this. I'm like, I'm trying to understand. I see the point, but there's no point. Just no, just it's not my thing. I guess not my generation. I guess anymore.
Yeah, and I think that's the exact same argument that you can make with something like Star Wars action figures or baseball cards or something like this. For me, it's like, okay, for me, I'm like, hey, I like it. I'm going to put it out here. And for a collector, they're like, no, it needs to stay in the box. So it has it has its value retained. And, so for collectors and stuff. And then for, if I was a 5-year-old kid, I wouldn't put it on a shelf. I would play with that thing all the time, right? But with as an adult, they were like, oh, I don't want it to get broken or something like that. So you just stick it on a shelf and you never play with it. So I think it's just a matter of different perspectives. Different people want different things, and for some people, I think uh, it's got value, but I think for most people, it doesn't. So I think it's one of those things where it's misunderstood, kind of on both sides. I think people who are very against it don't really understand what an NFT is or the value of it. And I think the people who put a lot of value in it don't understand the common sense that other people are coming from in a way.
They
So
really made it hard to understand. To be honest,
they
I
do. If
just came
you
to
look
see it
online,
when you explained it. Thanks for the explanation because I read it online. I was like, what is that?
I
I
think
just
that's
I don't get it.
I think that's part of this. I think that's part of it, and this is part of the reason why people think it's a scam. Is it does often seem that people are making it way more difficult to understand than it should be. So people are explaining it in these really bizarre, these really kind of technical ways that make it really difficult for people to understand. And I think the idea is if you don't understand it, you think, oh, this is smart or oh, this is valuable. You know what I mean? So I think there is some purposeful confusion out there, and then I think because I've heard, for example, people are putting NFTs on Olive Garden restaurants. So they'll be like, I'll create an NFT for this Olive Garden, I have the official token for this Olive Garden. You don't own that Olive Garden. It's just a random restaurant in your neighborhood. But why do you own the NFT for it, right? But the fact that people can do things like that, and they're like, "Oh yeah, the value is going up," and I think that makes a lot of other people look at it and be like, "No, this is a joke." And I think I think I think that's why there's a lot of misunderstanding. There definitely are people that are trying to con on this. So
Mhm.